Hello, everyone. Welcome to this little interview we have in store for you guys. My name is Jonathan Banks, and I'm the Director of Content and Experience for Momentum Events. And I have the pleasure of having with me today Kirstan Summers, who is the Director of Client Solutions and Strategy for Age One. Welcome, Kirstan, and thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to be doing like a little sneak peek of what to expect coming the second KOL engagement on March the 30th and the 31st in Philadelphia. So that should be fun. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here. How
My
are you?
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. And I wanted to ask you, because I know you guys work with KOL identification and all these cool things, and now technology is taking things to a different level and making adjustments and all this. So I wanted to ask you, um, what do you believe are three things that medical affairs teams need to consider when they're thinking about a strategy for expert scientific engagement nowadays?
Well, I appreciate that question. I appreciate that question as a consultant, but also as someone that has worked in medical affairs, leading scientific expert engagement strategy, and actually working with the experts themselves. I spent a number of years doing that before coming over to work with a bunch of hip cats in the tech landscape. But I will tell you the question is an interesting one, because when they're thinking about engagement strategy, is something I'd like to highlight, because it's not all the time and it's not consistent that organizations have a dedicated strategy to scientific expert engagement. They sort of have their big bucket strategic objectives, their scientific objectives that they're responsible for, but really taking time to think about who you need to engage to enable your business at that particular moment in that asset's life cycle. And really wrapping a thorough strategy around it is a very different topic that not all organizations have really consistently done well. And so when I think about what are three things they need to consider, I want to take right off the bat, the table stakes, which is what I consider the traditional thought leader to be, which is, do they have therapeutic area knowledge? Are they someone that is a well-respected clinical trialist and they're publishing in reputable journals and all of that sort of stuff? They're the people at the podium. They're people with clinical experience in a specific disease area. So that is table stakes. Scientific experts, thought leaders have to have that. And there's always room in an engagement plan for some of those people. But I will tell you what you really, really need to understand when you're building a scientific expert engagement strategy is a firm strategy, whether your role is in medical affairs or another part of the organization. You need a firm understanding of business and scientific objectives, not just for this moment right now, but you have to be able to understand where you've been in that landscape and where you'd like to go as well. Another thing I think is of critical importance is you really need to be a good steward of each other's interests. And you only get that way by having a firm understanding of not only that person's research interests, but related to your therapeutic area, but what goes beyond that. What else are they passionate about? What else are they learning about? What else are they speaking about actively? And that's how you build a strategy for how, when, and where you're going to work with certain individuals. The other thing I'd like to really challenge medical affairs teams around is knowledge of the healthcare marketplace. So wonderful thought leadership in a disease area or in the development of clinical trials for a certain disease area is a great thing to have, and you need that. But if you're engaging with thought leadership and you're not considering the healthcare marketplace and relevant interests there, you have to be able to pull those things together, because ultimately you're not just building trials for p-values. You're building trials for a great p-value that ends up facilitating a medication getting into the hands of a patient that needs that. And you're solving for clinical inertia from the moment you start to develop your clinical studies to post-marketing and and of course beyond. So you have to be able to build trials in a way that is going to impact clinical inertia in a way that helps solve for that diffusion of innovation. So I would say in summary, knowledge of the healthcare marketplace and the thought leaders' interest and how those things come together is critically important. Challenge your teams, challenge yourself to say, who of these key opinion leaders that I'm working with also have interest in some topics that are relevant to large health system decision makers or payers. And because the other piece of this is most true thought leaders don't stand on their academic merit alone. They're business people too. So if you're not constantly leading with that thought, you're missing the boat.
I love the challenge for the medical affairs people, and I wrote down a summary version of my own was knowing the marketplace, personalize the engagement, and think outside the box, because the box has definitely changed.
Mm-hmm. The box is different, and it looks different, and the lives and the setting for academic physicians, for clinical leaders has
Yes.
changed too, and you can't isolate the two from one another. If your medical affairs strategy isn't also aligned with your health economics and outcomes research strategy, or the data gaps that you're aligning on or solving for don't align to specific needs that the healthcare that will reflect the interest of the healthcare marketplace itself, then it's more of a traditional way of thinking, and that's not going to help propel you into the future. That being said, how do you bring all of this information together, and how do you find these unique things? And the wonderful thing about our complex, not only healthcare marketplace, but in general, the time that we're living in, is that there is a tremendous amount of data that is out there to help support strategy and decision making. And so what is critically important also to this is, you have to be able to say you've put the qualitative understanding of your thought leaders, but also it needs to be supported by rigor behind it. And you get that by a really solid digital underpinning of who that person is, what their interests are, how they've worked with your organization in the past, how they've worked with other organizations, the things that they're speaking on. There's so many different data points that come together holistically now to help show you truly different facets of scientific expert knowledge and interests. It's really critical to not just limit yourself to PubMed or clinicaltrials.gov or the institutional page when you're doing your research, but to really pull that together and challenge your thinking around these folks around a lot of these other topics.
Thank you so much. This is a great invitation and a great way to motivate medical affairs teams out there to adapt and adjust to what's happening right now. Thank you, Kirstan. I know you will be joining us also, and you will be giving a presentation on the KOL event on March the 30th and the 31st. So looking forward to meeting you in person. Then thank you so much for this time and this little sneak peek. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed this little interview with you. Thank you so much, and take care.
Thank you, Jonathan. I look forward to meeting people live. It's been a while.
Definitely has.
Awesome.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.